Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys doing this, and we'll continue now with class. Now, in order to understand Western civilization and a lot of the class, there are many people who have contributed to it. But there are basically three key individuals that you need to know about. Three key individuals. And we will concentrate on those three key individuals because of the length of time we have in this class. The first, for this course of Western civilization, who were they? Who were these people who had such a strong influence on the course of Western civilization? First of all, a person by the name of Moses. He lived around 2000 BC. That's about 4,000 years ago. What was his crucial ideas? And you will hear a lot about filial piety. Shaosun is very important in Moses' thinking. Moses' writings also explain about why there is good and evil. It talks about the beginning of the world and the creation of the world. These ideas have come very influenced into Western thinking. And I must admit, filial piety has also been reiterated again by Confucius about 1,500 years later, in about 500 BC. The next key speakers that we want to talk about, or thinkers, would be Plato and Aristotle. They lived around 500 BC, about 2,500 years ago. They gave us the ideas of logic, some of the basis of science, and philosophy. The final key thinker that we want to talk about, or key teacher, is Jesus. Jesus lived about 1 AD. That's about 2,000 years ago. He talked a lot about love and forgiveness. He would often say he would not be teaching anything new, but trying to bring people back to Moses' teaching, but also trying to explain that these teachings were more not just meant for Jewish people, but also for the world. So these three people are crucial, and we'll be concentrating on them during this course. Moses, Plato, and Aristotle, and Jesus. They lived over a period of time. You can see Moses, 4,000, 2,500, 2,000 years ago. So let's try, can you echo these names? Moses, Plato and Aristotle, and Jesus. Okay. In this course, for the final test, you need to know who they were, you need to know what they did, and you're going to need to know what they taught. I want you to know them and feel that you know them. Okay, so in today's class, we are going to look more details now about how we're going to study these three men. Well, first of all, in today's class, I want to first of all look at the web page. In other words, our home web page, which the same information is in the student books that I've handed out to you guys. Also, we'll start to talking about the course, what we're going to be doing, the grading of the course, which I think most people are very interested in, what books, what teachers we're going to be, and the teachers in the class, the schedule for this semester, and then we'll finally introduce a little bit about who's the facilitators, and finally, I probably will not do today, but we'll talk about presentation examples, and then finally we'll have a video of a person's life who was inspired by these teachings. Okay, so that's the day. So let's now go to the website, and I'll close the PowerPoint and we'll head on to our website. Okay? All right. This is the website for our class. You have a QR code link to the website on your on the front of your book, so you can link easily to our website, and it will give you all the information that we need to know about the course. Okay, so you will first come to our home page, because our goal is to enable Taiwanese students to see through the eyes of Westerners. That's our dream and our goal through this by looking through these books. Okay, now, let's now overview quickly the books that we will be looking at that have been written in the West, the key books, and then we'll focus on the ones that we will be concentrating on, so you get an overview of all the key Western literature. We won't be looking at it all, but this will give you a key overview along with a timeline. So let's go here. Okay, so here we are. I maybe try to make this a little bit larger for you guys. I think that's about big enough, do you think? Okay, all right. So in this chart, I've tried to build the foundations. So we're taking up to these great leaders in science: Galileo in astronomy, Boyle in chemistry, Newton in physics, Pasteur in biology, Faraday in electricity, and Maxwell in EM theory. Around 1600 is when all this comes to a fruition as a scientific worldview starts. But let's move back and go back in time now. All right. A long time ago, we start with the idea of oral tradition. Oral tradition. This is basically stories that are passed on from father to son. These would be memorized. Okay, so father would memorize it. He would then pass it on to his children, who would memorize it, who would pass it on to his children that would memorize it, who would then pass it on to his children, who would memorize it. Simultaneous, so along with this oral tradition developing, we also have the Chinese in early time developing Chinese characters, 中国的文字. So both the oral tradition and the characters will reflect stories that are in our history of human history before we start to see things written down. So it's only until we get to about 1400 BC, that's 3,400 years ago, that we start to get things written down. Moses in particular, he wrote a collection of 5 books that are known as the Torah. These books are providing a strong basis for most of the stuff in the Jewish writings that continue following. Over the next 1,000 years, there are a number of Jewish writings. We would divide them into the prophets, which were Jewish, and writings that were Jewish. These were all based on the Torah as we move from 1400 BC. These all writings, the Torah and the prophets, all influenced the Injil that Jesus, summarizing Jesus' teaching. So Jesus, we're going to look at him. Now, before we get to there, around 500 BC, there's another separate stream of thinking comes in, based on a Greek philosopher by the name of Homer. We then have the Greek classical philosophers coming around to 500 BC. That would be Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. These 3 men are going to be strong influencing as we move forwards. They did not have much of an influence on Jesus, but they'll have a lot of influence on the rest of civilization. Note that around when these guys were around in Greek, in China, we had Confucius basically putting together the basis of Chinese culture. And a lot of his thinking was based on earlier Chinese characters. Okay, so this will come on. When we get to AD BC, we have Jesus. Jesus influenced another prolific writer by the name of Paul. We will not be talking about him in this course, but he wrote a number of letters that are very important for Western civilization development and are included in the Bible. Okay, he was influenced both by Jesus and also by the Greek thinking, and also strong influence from the Torah. Based also the Torah, we had, as we move forwards, way up to around 600, 700 AD, we have the Quran. That would be Muhammad wrote that, strongly based on the Torah, and also having some influence into the pre-Enlightenment world. So the pre-Enlightenment world is basically all based on Greek classics. Now, as we move forward to 1600, we start to see the influence on modern things. We see the influence of the Torah, we'll try to see the influence of Jesus' teaching. We'll have also the influence of the Greek classics on the thinking of the great scientists. Galileo, which we know, fundamental ideas on astronomy, Boyle, chemistry, Newton in physics, Pasteur in biology, Faraday in electric, Maxwell in EM. strongly influenced by these thinking, ranging from Moses, the Jesus and the Injil, and the Greek classics, all influencing strongly their writings. Okay, so this gives you an idea of what we'll be discussing fits into the scheme of things. Now, how are we going to do this? What does our course outline look like? Okay, we're going to use books written by or recording the teachings of Moses, Jesus, and the Greek trio as examples of Western. So we will hopefully develop through that an appreciation of the importance of classical literature and these thinkers in influencing and shaping the development of Western society, thought, and particularly the scientific method. We are going to try to look at 4 questions as we look at each of these speakers. The first question is, what is the content of the book? What are the key ideas this person is trying to bring forth? A second question that we want to understand is, why did people respect or trust this book or person? Obviously, if a book's going to be influential, people have to trust the speaker. And so why did people trust Moses? Why did people trust Jesus? Why did people respect Socrates, Aristotle, Plato? Why? And obviously, since this is a course on classics and civilization, we need to now think about how did the book or person affect the lives of influential people in our society and society as a whole, either directly or indirectly through other people. How does this book affect the lives in our society? And most importantly, how does this thinking affect me today? And can this book or person's thinking help me to live a better life? Okay, so that's those questions we want to keep front and center. What's the content? Why did people trust and respect? How did this influence others? And what can I learn that will help me in my life? So the teaching methodology, is going to be lectures with guest speakers, and generally we'll try to have small group discussion, which will be facilitated by a tutor so we can get a better understanding by discussing with each other. We'll also have in-class presentations by students to help us understand the influence of classics on modern history, and where hopefully you'll be able to have a chance to do off-site observation to understand how thinking really affects people today in Taiwan. Okay, so that's going to be how we're doing. You have a student workbook, and if you ever want to review after the class what we're teaching, the lecture slides will also be on the website, so you can quickly review. All right, now within this class we have a number of facilitators, and some of them are not here. Some of them are due to so some are not here, but they will hopefully be here. So Ravi is here today. Stephen unfortunately is in hospital. Professor Jung will be here. Myself is here. This is me and my family. Oh, this is my nephew here. But this is my mother, my daughter, my wife, my 4 children, and we have and also Teeny. Okay, so maybe a little bit of time we'll let you guys. They will pause the video here and introduce themselves. I'll introduce myself. I'm in Canada this year on sabbatical. I'm doing research in the area of dementia or Laurentian, and I'm working at McMaster University for 1 year. I will come back 1 year later, I guess in 2023 in February. So that's me, and we've been teaching this course for a number of years. Okay, and we'll let other people can pause the video and we'll hear other people's introduction. Okay, let's move on now and talk about the schedule for the course, so you can understand how the course is being. Actually, maybe we'll do grading first, and then we'll do the schedule. Or do you want to do schedule? Schedule first. Okay. Okay. So this week is the course introduction, and we're going to just talk a little bit about who we're doing, and we'll have a short movie and a short time to get to know each other in small group. Next week, we'll talk about what is the Bible, who are these Greeks, and so what? Who cares? After these 2 weeks of general introduction, we'll then start to move into the meat of the course. The first 4 weeks are going to be discussing Moses. We'll discuss about Moses' life. We'll discuss about what Moses wrote about how the earth began. We'll talk about what Moses wrote about the issues of good and evil. And we'll also talk about a very famous person for Jewish people and for Islamic people, probably, and also for Christian people, this key figure, Abraham. I think you need to know him if you want to understand a lot of the issues in the Middle East right now, and the fighting in the Middle East, the Jewish issues, the Muslim issues, the Christian issues. After that, and the final week of Moses, we'll talk about how Moses wrote about how the Israel nation, or the Jewish people's nation, actually started as they moved from slaves into their own country. Now, as we study Moses, there will be reading assignments for homework. Yes. So there will be a quiz each week, a reading test. So the first quiz will be next week. You need to have read Genesis chapter 1 through 10. Genesis 1 to 10 are written by Moses. So we're going to, as we study Moses, we'll also be reading before class his writings, so you can feel what he's writing. We're not going to read them all, but we're going to look at this one. So if you go to the web page, you can just click here on Genesis, and there we go. You would want to read chapter 1 to 10. This is, you can just read through in paragraph chapter 1 and all the 10, and then chapter 2, then chapter 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So basically 10 web pages, 10 chapters. Okay, and then Genesis, etc. After we finish looking at the Greeks, that's after Moses, we'll then look at the Greeks, Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle. And for homework, you're going to have to read Plato's Apology. Now that's 32 chapters, so it's a little bit long, the reading, but I think it's useful reading. So you'll be reading a fair bit of Plato and try to get an understanding. Again, you can just click on it, and I have a link to the Plato's Apology, and you can read it through. I've tried to make it a little bit of annotation so it's clear for you. This is a conversation. You can see the Socratic method as Socrates defends himself against Meletus. This argument he does his argument, and so yeah. After that, once we've covered these original people, we'll then move on and look at the third person in our course that we're interested in is Jesus. Now, Jesus is extremely influential, so we'll be spending again a number of weeks on him. We'll spend 5 weeks talking about Jesus. Okay? And for the first week, we'll have a movie just about his life. You'll be reading Luke 1 to 4 to prepare. We'll then have midterm week. Midterm week, we will have a short class, including an online quiz, and you'll be a test on Luke 5 to 8. We will then break up into small groups. So the next 4 weeks are all small group studies. You'll still be doing a quiz from Luke, but the discussion will all be on 2 weeks on Jesus' life, 1 week on his death, 1 week on his resurrection. So that will be that section. And then finally, we will move on to the next section, which is your student presentations. In this part, you'll be giving presentations to help us to understand how these things have influenced. You'll be in small groups. There's no class on this week. We'll then have a course summary, and then we'll have a final exam, plus a short lecture on Jesus, Moses, Jesus, and religion. Because, yeah, you have to, there is a religion called Christianity, so we need to understand a little bit about how that religion started or came out of what it believes. These people are, and that people who are following Jesus have now become known as a religion called Christianity. So we'll try to talk a little bit about that. Again, if you want to read in Chinese, you can read in Chinese, or you can, and also we have the bilingual English and Chinese if you want to do bilingual reading of these verses. Okay, well, I guess that brings us to grading. How is this course being graded? Well, first of all, I'd like to talk about the expectations that I have for you and that we have for you as you attend this class in this course. First of all, we expect you to A5P. All right? What does that mean, A5P? First of all, I expect you to attend all classes. This is not a 通识课 that you can just sort of not show up at and get 90%. No. You need to attend all classes. We will be discussing topics in small groups. So I think it is very impolite, 不礼貌, both to your classmates and the teacher, to sometimes attend, sometimes not attend. So in the rare event that you need to miss a class, for example, you are sick, please make arrangements with the tutor to replace the class so as not to get behind. In other words, in this course, failure to attend means failure to pass. That's the main reason for students who have failed this course that's the main reason why the students who have failed this course in the past. Second, we want to worry about punctuality. That is, being on time for class is very important. Again, it's disruptive to class flow to have people sort of wander in late and wander out. Okay? Also, the test, the Kahoot quiz each week will be at the very beginning of class. So if you're late for class, you'll miss the quiz. Okay? We also expect you to participate in class discussions. So if you're going to fall asleep in class, you may be counted as being absent. Okay? So it's very, I don't know, as a teacher, I find it very demoralizing or very frustrating if students are sleeping in class. The third P is to provide feedback to the teachers. Provide feedback. What you like, what you don't like. I want to know your opinion. Okay? If you don't like something, do not complain to your parents and have them call the president of the university. There's an example of this happening not for our class, but for another class. Okay? Let's not do that, okay? Finally, phones. And in particular, smartphones. They reduce your learning efficiency very much, and that of your classmates, if you are using them in class or trying to play with them in class. Make sure your mobile devices are turned off and out of sight during class. Students may not turn on, view, or use any mobile devices in the classroom during class time, unless we instruct you by teacher. So for the Kahoot, the quizzes at the very beginning, you will need to use your handphone. Students who use devices in class or whose phones beep, ring, buzz, vibrate, chime, etc. will lose marks or be failed at the teacher's discretion. Now, smartphones really do reduce your learning efficiency. They actually have done some very interesting research here. If you want to look at it, I'll quickly shoot to this, guys. This is from University of Texas News. The mere presence of your smartphone reduces brain power, this study showed. In other words, In this one, they did a study of students. They had some students have the smartphone on the corner of their desk, turned off, and other people with the smartphones in their knapsacks. Students who had the smartphones in their knapsacks did better than students who had the smartphones sitting on their desk, significantly. So you can see here, participants with their phones in another room significantly outperformed those with phones on their desk. And they also slightly outperformed those participants who had kept their phones in a pocket or in a bag. So even though they didn't look at the phones, it still reduced their grade, having it sitting on their desk and having it in the same room. Amazing. Anyways, I thought that was quite amazing. So that's why we are trying to do this. Okay, finally, plagiarism. Plagiarism is something that I think is very it's like stealing, cheating. That is copying other people's works or copying from a book or internet sources without citations or without saying I got this from this book. I quoting this is not tolerated. If you copy a full sentence from any source without rewriting it in your own words, that means significantly changing it. It is plagiarism. It will result in a mark 0 for the assignment, a failing grade in this class, and a formal report to the department at our discretion, at our discretion, how grievous, whether we want to do a formal report to the university. Okay? Now, with that said, let's talk on the grading. Okay, the grading, very straightforward, okay? First of all, in-class grading. That's part 1. Second part is your student group report. And the third part is the impact today. So 3 items. So in class, we've divided into 2 sections to make it a little bit more clear this semester. Last semester it was not that clear. It was 70 marks and I linked participation and quizzes together. This semester I'm going to separate the 2. So participation in class is 50 marks. So that's on-time attendance and class participation is required. If you are late less than 30 minutes, you lose 50% of the marks for that class. If you are late greater than 30 minutes, you will be considered absent for the class. If you are absent for more than one class, unless there are extenuating circumstances, i.e. you have a medical certificate, you have a formal statement from the school saying that you're off somewhere for representing the school, you will fail the course. Okay? All right. Next, quizzes. We will have weekly quizzes. There's 12 quizzes at the beginning of class on the assigned readings. If you are late, you will miss the quiz, 0 marks. So except for extenuating circumstances, there are no makeup quizzes. So that's going to be 20 marks. So 50 marks are for the participation, 20 marks. So all in all, in-class stuff is 70 marks. Now, we have student group report. Okay, how do we do this? We're going to do it a little bit different this year than previous years. So, first of all, you're going to need to form a small group, 2 to 4 people maximum. You're going to get to choose one of 3 media options. It's first come, first serve. You can do a book report in your small group. You can do an interview, a one-to-one interview, or you can do a video introduction. Okay, based on that, you will then go and choose a person from the list. Okay, so list you can find here on website, way down here, okay, underneath all the books, not these guys. Okay, so if you want to do a book report, these are the books in the library. William Wilberforce, Abraham Lincoln, you may not do it because this is my example, but William Wilberforce you could do. You can do any of these scientists. You could do either of these musicians. There's some other people, like you can do George Leslie Mackay, David Livingston. These people, again, we have books in the library. All these are books in the library I found. So I make sure the library has the book before I assign something. And we'll also be uploading a few videos that you might want to view that are in ink and some effects on individuals today. That would be the interviews. So we have one person who's volunteered to be interviewed. He's a former military officer, Samuel. he lives in Taipei, so we could do the interview option. So these options will add more names later. All right, let's go back now. Okay, so you choose an influential person. You then need to apply, and there's a Google form here to allow you to apply. When you wait until you receive approval from the teacher will approve or disapprove. If you're trying to choose something somebody else has already taken, you can't do that. Then you can download the presentation form, which is right here. This is the presentation form. You basically your group members, your biography you have, and then we'll do the grading here. And this basically tells you how we're going to be grading everything. Okay, the 20 grading point, how the grading points are. Okay, and there'll be some comments here. So this is the mark sheet, as well as the application. Okay, and you'll give that to your TA. Once you've done that, then you can start to read the book or learn about the person's life, depending on what report option you've done. And then with your small group members, you can prepare your presentation according to the type of report your group has chosen. Make sure in the report that you have included, as you go through his life, that you mention his contribution to society somewhere in the report. It's not like you have to have section 1, life story, section 2, contribution to society, section 3, influence of classics. That's kind of a strange way of doing it. Through the presentation, you can see that as the life story comes through, you say, well, at this point in his life, this happened to him, and he was able to contribute this to society. Okay, at this point in his life, Newton wrote his laws about gravity. As his life continued on, this happened. Okay, he really found that as he got older, Aristotle was very important on Newton's thinking as he argued in dialogue with Aristotle. Okay, thinking. Okay, so we have the influence of classics. So at different points in his life, different classics had different influence on Newton, for example. All right, now let's look at the options for book reports. You will obviously learn about the person's life by reading his biography. Sufficient books are in the library. With the exception of Bach, there are sufficient copies for each group member to take one home. For Bach, we only have one copy. The other books, there's about 4 copies now. Okay. After you've read the book, prepare your presentation. It should be 12 minutes long, and it should closely follow the story of the book. A presentation based on Wikipedia can expect 0. You can see examples of good and bad presentations on the life of Abraham Lincoln. I have uploaded those. I'll upload those so you can look at them and compare what was a good presentation, what was a bad presentation. That's the book report option. Interview option. In this case, you'll contact the person. You'll try to learn about the person's life story by interviewing them, basically 1-to-1 or maybe 3 students. Basically 3 students, you'll go interview the person, discuss, learn about his life story, ask him questions. How did he grow up? How did the classics influence him? Was he influenced by Aristotle? Was he influenced by Jesus? Was he influenced by writings from Moses? How did they influence them? How did it affect his life? And you'll prepare a 12-minute presentation to present on the class based on your interview. Now, the third one is the maximum mark for the third one is 15 out of 20, but it's something that you may find. So there's going to be some videos, 20-minute videos of various important people's life stories. I'll try to make sure I can find ones either on YouTube or in the library. Okay, you will then, what you're going to do is prepare a 6-minute presentation in Chinese, not in English, in Chinese, introducing the English language video so people in the class can understand it easily. Note that the maximum mark, but note, if you are doing a Chinese introduction, because that's easier, the maximum mark for this option will be 15 out of 20, okay? And after your 6-minute presentation, then we'll all view the video together in English. So this will be another option. So this provides an option if you feel your English is struggling and you prefer to do something in Chinese. I assume no foreign students will take this option, but anyways, okay. Now, so this is your small group report. It's worth 20 marks. And finally, you choose one of the following 2 options for impact today. Either you can write the final exam. This will cover all the key concepts of the course. It will be held in the first hour of the class during exam week. Okay? Or you can make a visit. You may choose a location from the list of approved venues and suggested activities where speakers are trying to apply the classics teachings to life today. But before you visit, you must download the one-page report form. During your visit, record your observations on this form. If you are confused, you may download an example of a completed form. There's an example. Note that if you regularly attend one of these venues yourself, you may not use this for your visit. Okay, so we've got a list of some venues here that I can approve to you, like Jung Lee, it's in English. This is in Vietnamese. This would be in Chinese in Taipei. This is in Chinese in on a Saturday night, so you get at different times depending on your. And this one would be in also in Chinese on a Sunday morning. So different places you can attend. We'll be adding more venues as I find them, and some events that if I can find any events. Okay. So that's the grading. We'll now probably move on, and we'll be looking now at this video from the Samuel Morris story. We'll look at the cartoon version, but if you are more interested in getting the whole story with historical background, you can watch the real version without simplified English. It's 58 minutes long. So this short one is 32 minutes. The long full one is 58 minutes long. So you can take your choice. So we'll now move to that now.